Hello, this is the video for the making weapons lesson that we did in class, starting from the end of the starting the game lesson where we added the inputs. So you should be able to move around. Your character should be animated looking something like this. So if your project looks like this, you're good to go. And then I've done nothing really beyond that. So we're going to be starting from the top of the making weapon lesson. If you already got through some of it, I'll leave an index in the description. So the only thing that I'm going to do different from the docs is add all of the stuff from the beginning so that we don't have to get hung up on that later. So the animations and the static mesh. So in my animations folder, you should already have the pistol idle, pistol walk animation. Then we're just going to add in a shooting animation and a swinging of the pipe animation. So just as a quick refresher, if you go to Mixamo, search for shooting, for example, I just use this one where it looks like he's shooting a pistol, and I'll show you how to import it. For the attacking with a melee weapon, I looked up great sword slash, and this one looks pretty good. Just remember when you're downloading animations that involve movement that you check the in place checkbox. We don't need to do that for this one. Then you press download without skin, 60 frames per second. I already have one in my downloads folder. Then you go back to your project in the animations folder, drag it in, and it's super easy importing animations when you already have the skeleton and the materials and all that. Just make sure you have import only animations checked and then change the skeleton to your SK_character. For me, it's paladin and import. And that neatly imports only the animation. You don't want it importing all the materials and all that other junk every single time you import an animation. Then rename it _pipe attack or something like that. Just make sure that it starts with AS, which stands for animation sequence. That way I can search for all this stuff super easily. So those should be the only animations we need for this lesson. For the static meshes, we're going to need the grenade, gun, pipe, and bullet. And we're also going to need a grenade launcher. So just to show how to get the easy way to get those is go to Window, open the Fab window. I already have it looked up there. I'm going to search for, I already know the one I want is Lost Hope Launcher. This one right here. Click the Add to Project. That way, it's just a super quick way. You don't have to go to the Fab website or anything like that. Then go to the static mesh folder, rename it, and this is important to rename it to SM Launcher, SM Grenade Launcher, anything that starts with SM for static mesh. And then I would move it to a dedicated static mesh folder in your project. I would make a folder for that because it's just going to make everything so much easier. I notice a lot of people aren't renaming it or organizing it, which just makes the difference between taking 1 second to find something versus 60 seconds to find something. And you're going to be looking for things constantly throughout your project. So it's just better to do something 60 times faster. So I have the SM launcher. I'll show you guys what the other things I'm using. For the gun, I just went to Fab and looked for gun sketch, and it's the first one that pops up when you search gun sketch. For the pipe, if you look up exhaust, or if you look up car exhaust, it's the first one that pops up. For the bullet, I just looked up bullet and I switched the price to free, and it's the second one that pops up here. And is that everything that we use? Bullet, grenade, and then grenade also. Just look for grenade, and it's the first grenade. It's free. So those are all of the static meshes that we're going to be using for this project, and should be good to go. So I'm going to go to my blueprints folder and make a new folder. Right click, new folder, make a weapons folder, open it up, and looks like we're going to make our first base weapon class. So going to make a new blueprint class of type actor and name it BP for blueprint _ weapon base. And I'm going to open it up. Here I'm going to go to the components tab, add a static mesh. I'll keep it named static mesh and switch it to my SM_pipe. So that's the car exhaust that we just added. By the way, for these static meshes, they're going to import in various sizes. So a quick, easy way, some of you already know how to do this because we talked about it. I know the pipe is roughly around the size that I want all the weapons to be, so I'm going to drag the pipe into the level. When I drag the grenade launcher into the level, it's so big that you can't see it. So we'll go ahead with it selected, go to selection mode and change it to modeling mode. And then go to the X form, which is the transform tab. Then click on transform, and I'm gonna make it maybe 100 times smaller. So change 1 to 0.01. Okay, that made it a little bit better. I'm gonna try making it 1,000 times smaller. No, Jesus Christ. Let's try 0.0001, so 3 zeros. All right, that's a lot better. I'm gonna complete and then press the bake transform button. That's just to the right of the transform button, and then accept it. That's still much bigger than the pipe, but there were so many zeros that I just wanted to save that minimalization. Now I'm gonna make it 100 times smaller again. No, that's too much. Let's just try 10 times smaller. All right, so 0.1 looks pretty good. That looks perfect. So I'm gonna complete and make sure I remember to bake it again. So if you don't bake it, it's not gonna save this scaling when you leave. And then I think the gun is also kind of big. So I'm gonna drag the gun, hit transform again, make it 10 times smaller. That's perfect. Complete and bake. So that's definitely a little handy thing to know how to do. So after you bake it, you can delete it from the level and it'll save. Now the actual source static mesh size has been changed. So back to the weapon base, the next step we're gonna do is create a socket. So I'm gonna go to my characters folder, open my BP character FPS, and just find the static mesh from there. So I just clicked on this little folder icon in the details panel of my static mesh. And then that took me here, open the static mesh. Now we're going to create a socket for holding the pipe, right? So I'm going to go to a sword idle, or I'm gonna use my pistol idle. Actually, no, the sword idle looks a lot better for holding the pipe. So I'm gonna do preview AS_sword idle, go find my right hand right here in the skeleton tab, in the skeleton panel. Right click on that, click add socket. So that made a right hand socket. I'm gonna rename it to pipe hand socket. And then I'm gonna add a preview asset, add preview asset, and I'm gonna look for my SM_pipe. And it doesn't look really too good. So I'm gonna click on my pipe hand socket that I just made, press W, and rotate it a little bit. Or I mean, transform it a little bit. It's not perfect, but it'll do for now. Maybe he'll be holding it like that. All right, that's good to go. Save that. And then we go to BP weapon base, go to the variables tab, press the plus button, and name it equip socket name. And switch it to variable type name. Equip socket name of type name. Remember to compile and then go to the default value and change it to pipe hand socket. And it has to be spelled with the exact spacing and capitalization as you named that socket on the skeletal mesh. So I'm going to save that. Now I'm going to go back to BP character base. I'm going to click BP character FPS, and in the top left, click on the magnifying glass and open it from there. And here it looks like we're going to make a custom event called AcquireNewWeapon so that we can pick up this weapon. So right click in the event graph and add a custom event and call it AcquireNewWeapon. All right, so we made the AcquireNewWeapon custom event, dragged out and created a spawn actor from class node. When we call this method, we want to tell it which weapon we want to spawn. So we're going to select it in the inputs, create a new parameter, call it weapon class. and change it to type BP weapon base. BP. And make sure that it's the purple class reference. So that's not an object reference, it's a class reference. Then we'll be able to connect it to the class. I attached that purple output pin to that purple input pin. Now we need to tell it where we want to spawn it. And we want to spawn it on that socket that we just made. And we made that socket on the mesh of the character. So I'm going to go to the components panel, drag out the mesh. And then from here is where we're going to get the socket transform. So we should be able to just pull out from that mesh and type get socket transform and pull that into there. But we also need to tell it which socket we want it to go from. So let's remember we named it on the BP weapon base. We made that equip socket name variable. So we're going to pull out from this weapon class, this purple weapon class, which is a reference to our weapon of which we just made this variable, and get class defaults. So get class defaults would be like, let me show that. When you click on the BP weapon base and you click this class defaults button, you can see the class defaults. And here at the very top, you see the one we just made, which is equip socket name. So this is what we want to call right there. And this is where we're doing that. We're getting those class defaults, and then we can just connect this equip socket name to this in socket name. So now it's going to spawn at that point. Now let's create the owner and the instigator. We could just get a reference to self. So right click and look for self, get reference to self, and plug that into the owner and instigator sections. And next we want to attach them so that they are, I mean, it's just doing what it is saying that it's doing, is attaching the actor to the component. Return value, that's what we're spawning from this node. So that's going to be the weapon, that'll be the target, and the thing we want to attach it to is again going to be this mesh that I'm dragging from the components panel. And then we want to change all of these, this is important, all of these snap downs, drop downs to snap to target instead of keep relative. And then once again, drag this equip socket name to the socket name input execution pin, input pin there. And then I'm going to double click on that line and drag it down so that it's a little bit more readable. Next, let's test it very quickly. So that acquire new weapon, find your event begin play node and drag out from it and call the acquire new weapon method that we just made. And then set the drop down in the weapon class to BP_weapon base. So it's going to, that's going to be this thing. That's going to be what we end up spawning. And let's play. And it worked. As you can see, the pipe spawned in my hand, but I can't really move around very well. That's because the collision of the pipe is interfering with my movement. So I go to BP weapon base, make sure I select the static mesh component in the components panel and search for collision. And in the collision presets tab, switch it from block all to no collision and compile. Now when I play the game, I should be able to move around free. And that's a very rusty pipe. All right, so now we're going to build the infrastructure for telling our blueprints which animations to play depending on which weapon we have out. So we're going to need two things. We're going to need first a way to hold different animations for different weapons, and then we're going to need a way to tell what weapon we actively have out. So because the BP weapon base is going to be the parent object of all of our weapons, everything that is on the weapon base is going to be on our individual weapons. So let's go to BP weapon base. And remember, everything we do, it's important that you're doing it in the right place. So you want to make these variables in BP weapon base. So in the variables tab, I'm just going to make another one. And we're going to want a unique idle animation of type anim sequence. There's two anim sequences. One of them works, one of them doesn't. So I'm just going to guess and go with the first one. Make another variable and call it walk anim. of type anim sequence, then compile. And looks like these ones didn't work, so that's good because we can show it. But usually it's like a little box. Like if I search with this drop down, I'm not seeing any of my animations. So if that happens, just search for the other anim sequence. And I actually think it's going to be, no, try this second one and then compile. And then you can see you get this box and I can actually see my animations. So the default one doesn't really matter too much. I'll put it to the pistol idle because I'm never really going to be pulling out the weapon base. I'm always going to be pulling out a child of the weapon base, a gun, a grenade launcher, or a sword or something. And so I'll put that to pistol walk. And then let's go to character base. And I'm pretty sure this is where we're going to hold the current active weapon variable. So same deal, make a new variable, call it current active weapon. And that is, of course, going to be of type VP weapon base, object reference. So thinking about where we want to set the custom or the current active weapon, it's probably going to be after we spawn that weapon. So in the BP character base still, in the acquire new weapon custom event, I'm going to scroll to the end. Right after this spawn actor node, right after we spawn the weapon, I'm going to make some space. And that's where we want to set our new current active weapon variable. So I'm going to drag out from spawn actor, search for set current active weapon, make that set node. This return value, that is the weapon that we spawn, I'm going to connect that to the current active weapon and then connect the output pin back to the target. So it looks like that. And then we want to tell it which animations. We need a function to get those new animations from BP weapon base. So I'm going to create a function, not a custom event, it's not going to be read like this. I'm going to go over to the functions panel and click this plus button to add a function and call it get active weapon anims. And here's where we're going to do that. And I'm actually going to see what happens when I copy and paste it from the documents, because if there's any issues, we can go over how to do that. So I already made this parent node. I'm just going to copy and paste everything after that. So it looks like that, and it gives us the return node, and then I connect the first node. It looks like I didn't have any issues. So probably because, we did everything correctly up to that point. And so now that we did that, I'm assuming, going to have to go to the animation blueprint and set those animations there as well. So let's do that. Let's go to my animations folder and open the ABP. And here we have the animation so far. Next, after the end of the event blueprint update animation event, I'm going to pull off from the set node and create a cast to BP character base. Drag off from the object and get a try get pawn owner node. So we're getting our character, get active weapon anims. So now we can call that function that we literally just made. If I pull out from this, I don't think I'm going to find it because we made that on character base. So we need to pull out from the character base to find that node. And see, that's creating this function that we just made, get active weapon anims. See how this is on character base? We can only call it from the animation blueprint if we pull out from character base. That explains if you're looking for a node and you can't find it. And then from here, we can set the idle animation. So I'm actually going to pull out, no, we want to set these idle animations. So these variables that we made on the animation blueprint, I'm just going to drag out, hold Alt and drop to create a set node and pull this idle animation in. Set it from there and then do the same. All right, so I was recording for 10 minutes and it turned out it was frozen. So I changed recording software and tried to delete everything that I did. So we'll see if that worked out. But basically finishing this up, we just do the same thing that we just did. Bring in the walk animation while holding Alt. And then you can't do things at the exact same time. So we just set it set the idle animation, then set the walk animation. Make sure it's connected to this walk output pin from the get active weapon anims node, and compile and save. And now we're gonna make an animation in Unreal to switch weapon animations, and we're just gonna have them like duck out of the way, out of frame, and come up with a new weapon. So I'm going to go to my characters folder and find the skeletal mesh for my character. So SKM Paladin, open that up. This is where we want to make the animation. So create asset, top left corner, create animation, and then click current pose. Find your animations folder, click it, and then name it AS for animation sequence underscore weapon switch. So AS weapon switch, open that up, dock it with everything else, pause it in the bottom left, click anywhere in the timeline, right click anywhere in the timeline, and select add frames to start of sequence, add 9 frames. There's a total of 10 frames. And then go to the skeleton tree that's shuffled in the top left. Go to about halfway in, like frame 5. Drag the, I forgot what you call it. And then let's select the spine number 1 and drag it down about 60 degrees, and then press S. So I created a keyframe. Now I'm going to click on the asset details in the left over here and search for additive and make it into an additive animation. So switch from no additive to local space, and then save, and then we're going to make a montage. And I think I did it a little bit differently in the docs, but the easier way to make a montage, in my opinion, is to go to the animations folder where we saved that, right click on the AS weapon switch that we just made, and go to create anim montage, and name this ASM animation sequence montage underscore weapon switch. Then open that up, and what we do here is go to the search settings and open up the blend options, and you see blend in and blend out. Just switch that from 0.25 to 0.15. Otherwise it takes too long to do the animation to blend in, but 0.15 seems to work for me. So now we need to make a method that will call this animation. So I think we do that on VP character. We're going to make a VP switch thing. But first, let's go to the ABP and go to the anim graph. You can do that by going to the bottom left, double clicking on the anim graph, right click anywhere, and create a slot default slots node, and just connect that in between your state machine and your output pose node, and then compile and save. Then go to your BP character base. You should see your acquire new weapon method. Underneath that, let's create a new custom event. So add, right click anywhere, add custom event, name it switch active weapon 2, switch active weapon 2, and then we're just gonna get it to play the animation for now. So I'm gonna drag out my mesh from the components panel because that's where we're gonna get this animation from. The animation is on this mesh. Drag out from mesh, search for play montage, and then connect it to the switch active weapon node that we just made. If you try to find that node just from dragging out from here, you might find the wrong node. So in the montage to play dropdown, select the weapon switch that we just made. Now we need to go to our input folder. We're going to tell it to play this animation to run that event. Input actions folder. Here are our input actions. Let's right click, go to input, create a new input action, name it IA shoot. So this is going to be for when we just press the left mouse. That's good. Let's go back to the input action folder, right click on IMC default. That's our mapping context that we're using, and leave all of these ones alone. Just go to the mappings bar and press the plus button next to mappings. Switch it from none to IA shoot that we just made. And then next to this keyboard button, switch that other none drop down to left mouse. Save it. That's all good. You can cancel that. And then all of our input is being handled on the character FPS. So go to my character folder, BP character FPS. Underneath this enhanced input action jump, right click, search for enhanced, find the IA underscore shoot. Make sure that you choose the one with the arrow next to it, not the one with the window next to it. Pull out from the triggered, and I'll switch active weapon 2. Save that. So now that should be called. Play it, test it. If I hit the left mouse button, he's going to the side. I don't know why. I'll try to figure that out, but the animation's working. Right now we get some errors, but we'll get rid of those shortly. All right, next we want to make the weapon that we're holding invisible and make the next weapon that we want to bring out visible. So let's make 2 events for that quickly. So let's open BP weapon base. And we're going to make a new custom event. Right click anywhere in the event graph, add custom event, weapon in inventory, and then also make one called weapon in hand. And then drag out from the components panel your default scene root and drag out from that and make a set visibility node. And make sure that you're not creating that from here. You're creating it from the default scene root. But then you want to connect it to your custom event. And when the weapon is in the inventory, then we want it to be invisible. So we'll leave new visibility unchecked. Propagate to children, yes, that's the whole point. Weapon in hand, again, drag out another default scene root. Drag out from there, set visibility. This time we can check it to be visible and also check propagate to children. So we're going to call these 2 events in the middle of our animation. So let's go find our acquire new weapon on BP character base. Acquire new weapon function right after the spawn actor node. We want to delete the weapon that we're holding or make it invisible. So I'm going to delete the set node and I'm going to create the weapon in inventory. And I think I'm going to have to drag out from this return value because the return value, again, is the weapon of which we just created that method on. So here we want to call weapon in inventory. Connect it there like that. Bring it up a little bit and also connect this return value weapon to attach it right there. So that just hid one of our weapons. Let's go to switch active weapon 2, which is right below it. Drag these 2 nodes a little bit over here, and we're going to create an input parameter on the switch active weapon 2 custom event. So I'm going to compile. In the inputs, in the details section, press the plus button and name it new active weapon. We want to get a reference to the weapon we're about to pull out. It's going to be type BP weapon base. Object reference. And from here, we can set let's create a variable called, and remember we're doing all this in BP character base, pending next active weapon. So we have a reference to the weapon we're holding and the weapon we want to bring out. And that's going to be BP weapon type. BP weapon base is going to be the type. And we want to set that. So I'm just going to drag alt drop, put that in between these 2 nodes, and connect the parameter that we just made into the input pin. So wherever we call this switch active weapon 2 method, we're going to indicate which weapon we actually want to switch the weapon to. And then that's going to be set right there. All right, now at the end of, on BP character base, at the end of acquire new weapon, let's drag off from the attach actor to component and call switch active weapon 2. And drag off from the return value of the spawn actor node and plug that into the new active weapon. I'm going to double click on the line, make it so that we can see that a little better. Now we want to actually switch weapons in the middle of our switching weapon animation. So we're going to use a notify in our animation sequence. So not in the montage, but in the sequence. So I'm just going to double click on the sequence there, go to the middle. And in this notify section, or actually it is going to be on the montage now that I think of Oh, in my animations, I'm just going to open up the ASM weapon switch. Go about to the middle of it. In the Notify section, there's a little 1 row. I'm going to right click in there, add Notify, new Notify, name it Weapon Switch Hands Down. Weapon Switch Hands Down. Drag it to the middle. And then we're going to get a reference to that in our animation blueprint in the event graph. So I open up the event graph, looks like this right now. If I search for anim notify, I should event anim notify, there it was. If I search for event, I'll see the event anim notify weapon switch hands down. For now, let's just print a string. It says hello and test it. All right, I tested it by pressing play and I got a bunch of errors. So I think we just keep going through the docs. We'll fix that in the next page. So I'm gonna go to BP character base, go to my event graph. And so that this video is not going to be like 2 hours long, I think we'll just go through the copying and pasting method. We're gonna make a weapon switch hands down notify custom event. So I'll copy and paste. I prefer just to make the custom event myself. So below switch active weapon 2, I'm going to add a new custom event. Call it weapon switch hands down notify. And then I paste the remainder of that. The sequence node is just deciding the order in which things happen. First, we're doing the 0 execution pin, and we're checking if we have a weapon. If we have a weapon, then we're putting it in our inventory, make it invisible, and then we're showing the next weapon that we're pulling out. So that compiled well, good. Next, we're going to the ABP, and looks like we're restructuring some of this stuff. So once again, let's just make it simple. Looks like we are, I guess I'll just copy and paste everything after the event anim notify weapon switch hands down. Delete this print string node. Paste everything and then connect the anim notify weapon switch hands down to the casting node. And then what's very important to remember to do is we don't need to have this, everything after, we basically just moved all of this down to here instead. So you cannot have it twice. So everything after the set is moving bool node, delete, just like that, and then compile. All right, now let's, in BP character base still, add a delay node between the begin play and the acquire new weapon. Drag out from begin play, delay. I'm gonna set it to like 1 second. Compile, make sure it's set to BP weapon based. And then if you test it, after a second, he pulls out a weapon. So that's working. I think if you keep trying to attack, it's not gonna work yet. But we didn't get there yet. So back into BP weapon base. Let's create a variable for our attack animation. So click on walk anim, press Control D, name it attack anim, compile, and set the default value to AS type attack. And compile that. And then we're going to add a custom event. This is in the weapon-based event graph called play attack anim. Everything we just did is in the weapon base. First, we want to cast our character because we're going to tell our character's mesh to play this animation. We're going to drag out from this gray object input node and get owner so we can get our character. Drag out from that play montage. Actually, I'm going to drag out from as character and create, just look for mesh and get the mesh. So I'm pretty sure from this mesh is where we want to create the play montage node. Yes, and then connect them up here so that it actually goes through. Then use this variable. Press Control and drop it. Drag it into the montage to play. And that is not working because this needs to be an animation montage, not an animation sequence. Right? All right, let's go to our pipe attack. In the animations folder, we have AS pipe attack. Same way we made the montage before, right click, create animation montage. Name it ASM pipe attack. Save. Go back to BP weapon base and then just set the default value. Do that one instead. Look up ASM. Well, here's another way to do it. You could just set the montage to play to ASM pipe attack. Delete this attack animation variable. And then just promote it to a variable. And then name it attack anim. All right, and then to make this more readable, first of all, as you know, we talked about in class, we make this a variable in case we want to change, if you're making a scalable project or you're working with people and you want to change the attack animation, all you have to do is to change the default value of this variable as opposed to looking around everywhere you used it in your code and changing in every individual instance. I'm going to right click and then shift click or control click these three nodes, the get owner, cast character, and target mesh node. Right click on one of them and press collapse to function. I'm going to name this function get pawn skeletal mesh. That just makes everything look a little bit neater. I'm going to go to the details panel with it selected and select pure. It means we only are really getting output value. You don't need any like input. That's a pure function. All right, we have a couple more attack methods to make. Let's make a new custom event and call it attack. So far, this is just going to play the play attack animation. And then we also, depending on the weapon that we have, where the attack is going to come out at different points. It's not always just going to come out at the start of the animation. If you're swinging a pipe, you want the impact to actually happen when the pipe's out. Or if you're shooting a pistol, it's like right after the recoil of the pistol. So let's create a new custom event and call it commit attack and notify, and we're going to call that from whatever point in an animation using notify. Right now I'm going to select all of these and press C. That puts it in a group. I'll call attack stuff. Next, we're going to go to compile and save. Go back to BP character FPS. Gonna look at find your IA shoot wherever that is. We can disconnect this. Just gonna move that over there. And instead, I'm gonna drag out from the node and find an is valid. Choose the one with the question mark next to it. Pull out my drag out from the input object and find a current active weapon. Then I'm going to drag out from the current active weapon because that's where we just made that attack method and call that from there. And then connect it at the end. So it should look like this. So now when we click, it'll do an attack. Let's start with our pipe. So if I find my pipe animation, so if I go ASM pipe attack, let's pause the animation where I want it to attack. I think like right there is a good place to start attacking. I'm gonna right click and create a new notify the same way we did before. So in the one bar, new notify, call it commit attack. Make sure it's a notify, not a notify state. Then save, go back to the ABP. All right, so on the animation blueprint, the same way we made this anim notify before, we're gonna make another anim notify. So search for events. This time find the anim notify commit attack. And we're going to set it up to look like this. So I'm actually just going to copy paste these two nodes. Connect that cast node. And then call commit attack atom notify. But we're going to have to get a reference to our current active weapon. So I dragged off from the BP character base output node, created a current active weapon, then drag off from there and created a commit attack atom notify, and can make sure I remember to connect those up at the end. So now when that notify is called, it's going to call this, which is not doing anything because that's going to do something. Maybe that's going to shoot a bullet. Maybe it's going to shoot a grenade. All that kind of stuff. So let's make the different children of the weapon base. So in my weapons folder, right click on the BP weapon base, create child blueprint class, call one BP gun, go ahead and right click again on the weapon base, create child blueprint, BP pipe, and finally BP grenade launcher or BP launcher. Open up the gun and open up the launcher. And you should already have those static meshes because we did that before. So if I click on the static mesh, you can change that to SM gun file. On the launcher, change it. Click on the static mesh, change it to SM launcher. Looks good. Next. What's next? Set up that. Let's do the same thing that we did for the pipe attack animation. Let's do that for the gun and the grenade launcher animation. So I'm just going to use the same shooting animation for the gun and the grenade launcher. So I'm going to right click AS_shooting, create anim montage. Name it ASM shooting. Open it up. Where I want him to shoot is right when the recoil happens. So like here, where I want the thing to come out. Under 1, right click. Oh, I misclicked. Hold on. Right click, add notify. I see commit attack. Use the one that you already made. Don't make a new one. And that is where the bullet, that's when the bullet will spawn. Now with the animations all created, go to the blueprint for the gun. Click on the BP gun parent. So it says BP gun parentheses self. And then check in the details panel at the top. You should see these default animations. Make sure that your attack anim is changed from pipe attack to the ASM shooting. And pistol walk is fine, pistol idle is fine. While you're here, you can change the name of the equip socket name from pipe hand socket to gun hand socket. Just remember how you spell it. Then go to your BP launcher after that. Again, change it from pipe attack to ASM shooting. Those are the default animations we want to use for the ranged weapon. You can double check in your blueprint for the pipe as well that those are all good. I forgot to say also change the equip socket name on your grenade launcher to launcher hand socket because should be pipe hand socket by default. We haven't made those sockets yet, but that's going to be what we do next. If you're not seeing these default options, make sure that you have the parent selected in your component panel. So L level 1, again, I want to open my static mesh for my character, which I have in my characters folder. My skeletal mesh, excuse me. And you can see where we made this pipe hand socket before. I'm just going to do the same exact thing that we did. Right click on the right hand, add socket, and name it gun hand socket. I'm going to right click on the pipe hand socket and remove all attached assets. Then right click on the gun hand socket and select add preview socket, add preview asset or whatever, and then change it to the gun. So that gun is looking quite large. So I'm actually going to go to my static mesh folder, drag out the gun again, go to the Xform tab, transform, and change the scale to 10 times smaller. Then hit complete, then hit bake, then hit accept. Now when I go back to my static mesh, oh, I can't see it. Whoops, that's a little too small. So really quickly, make it 5 times bigger. 5, that looks like it's gonna be perfect. Bake that, accept. That's perfect. And I'm gonna hit the E button, rotate it a couple of times, drag it up a little bit, bring it in my hand. So I think that'll look pretty good. Have it kind of pointed towards the middle. And now I'm going to right click on the gun hand socket, remove all attached assets. Right click on the right hand, add socket, name the new socket launcher hand. Right click on the launcher hand socket, find my SM launcher. Ooh, that is absolutely massive. So again, I'm going to drag the grenade launcher into the level, hit the transform button. This time I'll make it like half as small. I think that'll be perfect. Remember to bake it. And that's perfect. So yeah, everything was just like needed to be cut in half. Use the W and the E key to rotate it into place. Oh dear, it's up to it was upside down. I'll get that perfect off camera, but that looks like something. If you want to see how it looks in the actual position, you could set it to ooh. So you should set the preview animation to pistol idle actually before you do all of that stuff. I don't know what animation it was in beforehand. And then I'm actually gonna remove that, go to the gun hand socket, and add the gun. What does it do? Add preview asset. Send. Now we're talking. All right, once you got it where you want it, if you want to test it, you can go to your BP character base in the event begin play, acquire a new weapon, change it to one of the children that you made, compile, press play. After a second, he pulls out the gun. Looks good. When you click, they should play the attack animation. Go back to BP character base. Make sure the launcher looks good too. And that looks really good. Right, we're making good progress. Getting to the end here. Next, we're gonna make a way to tell, because in most games when you attack, you usually don't have to wait for the entire animation. So we're gonna come up with a way to tell at which point in our animation can we interrupt with other stuff. So let's go to our weapons folder and make an enumeration, which you go to right click anywhere, blueprints, enumeration, which is just like it'll be a list of stuff that we can do different stuff with in blueprints. I'm going to call it E_weapon state, E for enumeration. And then now with that made, I'm going to go to BP weapon base where we want to reference it and create a new variable in the variables panel. Call it weapon state. And that is going to be of type E, not W, E weapon state. Compile it. The default value is kind of weird right now. Let's open up the E-weapon state enumeration that we just made. Click on the add enumerator button and make three of them and call them idle, attacking, and reloading. The 3 different states that our weapon is going to save. So now if we go to weapon base, we can see set the default value to idle and compile and save. Now back in our weapons folder, let's create a blueprint class. So right click, blueprint class, and then search for anim notify. And we're going to make it anim notify state. So not make sure you don't click on this anim notify. Make sure you click on what says fully anim notify state. Call it ANS for anim notify state. Weapon state, is that what we're calling it? ANS weapon attack. And then open it up, and there's nothing here. We're going to make a couple of functions there in a second. But now let's go to our animations and indicate how long we want the animations to be uninterruptible. I'll start with, I'll open the montage for the pipe attack. Go into the notify section. I already renamed this attack. It should say 1, but if you just click on it and then wait for a second, you can rename it to like attacking. And right click in there, add notify state. Click on the ANS weapon attack that we just made. And from the beginning to about like right there, I'll drag it to like right there. That's when he can interrupt it if he wants to. And he can start moving or do another attack or whatever. Then we only have to do that for our shooting as well, because we don't want to wait for the full shooting animation. Rename the 1 row to attacking, add the weapon attack, and then right when the gun stops moving, like right there, I think would be a good time for him. It doesn't have to be perfect. So now we are going to tell our blueprints what's going on. So let's start by going to ANS underscore weapon attack, and we're going to make 2 functions here by going over to the functions panel, not clicking this plus button, but clicking this override dropdown and overriding the received notify begin event. And that is, if you go to our animation, this is just going to be called at the start of this ANS weapon attack that we made. Whatever we call that, it's going to play what we have here. Here you can copy and paste it from the blueprints. I don't think it's going to take that long to make. I'm going to drag out from the mesh comp and get a get owner node. Make sure you get it by dragging out from that mesh comp if you're making it yourself. Then from here, I'm going to cast to BP character base. Cast to BP character base. Like that, connect it. So it's connected like that. So it's doing this first. And then from here, I'm going to drag out and get the current active weapon variable from BP character base. And then because our enumeration is on our weapon base, I'm going to drag out from current active weapon and set the weapon state from there. And on the beginning of the animation, we want to set it to attacking, right? Because that's what we're starting to do at the beginning of the animation. We're starting to attack. So make sure this dropdown is switched from idle to attacking, and then you can finally connect it to the third node. That's everything. I'm actually just going to copy and paste this because we're basically going to do the same thing again. Except this time I'm going to go to override and override received notify end. As you can guess, is calling this last part of it on the animation. And then make some space, copy and paste it. This time connect that like that, connect the mesh comp to the get owner. And this time switch it from attacking to idle. And finally, make sure you connect it to the return node. And you can check this return value. And compile, save. Now I think we're going to make a can attack function. So we're done on ANS underscore. So compile and save that. Let's go back to BP weapon base. This time we're going to create not a custom event. We're going to create an actual function. So go to the functions panel and press the plus button. Call it can attack, which is self-explanatory. It's going to make sure that thing is done before we can attack again. And with that open, let's add a return node. On this return node, let's make an input parameter and call it result. Or I guess make it an output parameter and call it result. Keep it as a bool because it's just going to be like yes or no, can we attack or not. Weapon states, we could just drag that in, get it, and then this looks like an equal enum. And make sure you choose the equal parentheses enum. Connect that to the result node. You can keep it as idle file. So then switch back to your event graph. You can just click on the tab up here, and then you see our attack stuff. Right after the attack custom event, we're gonna check. So drag out can attack. And then you can press B and click to create a branch node and put that between the can attack and the play attack. And if we can attack, then it's gonna proceed. All right, now let's get into making the weapons actually do damage, which is getting into the fun stuff. There's actually two other things that we're gonna need that I forgot to add at the beginning. One, so I'm gonna open the window, Fab, search for simple particle bursts, and get this first one that's free. This is stuff, oh, to get this one, you have to switch it to a personal license. Just fine for our purposes. 5.5, that's fine, add to project. I mean, when you guys make your own games, you can make your own effects and stuff, but for learning purposes, we're just seeing what's available. And then I'm gonna search for free explosion. And there should be free realistic Niagara explosion pack. Add that to project on 5.4. All right, so now let's do the blueprinting. I'm gonna go to BP pipe. It's because each event commit attack is gonna do a different thing depending on the weapon that is being used. I'm gonna create an event commit attack anim notify. I'm gonna call that notify that we made. This one's a big one, so I'm just going to copy and paste it from the documents that we have. I copy pasted everything except for this first node because I think it causes issues if you try to paste this first red node. This is just getting an overlap. It's making an array of everything that this is hitting. And for each one that it's hitting, it's doing damage. So if we compile this right now, we'd get errors because, as you guys know, we don't have the variables. Luckily, we can easily just right-click, promote to variable. Sphere radius, I created a set node for some reason. I'm going to rename this to damage range. That's another way of looking at it. Let's see. Okay, so that looks good now. Is that everything for that? Okay. So the pipe one is the simplest one. So I think we can throw an actor and playtest that. So let's go to BP character base. So in BP character base, create an event, any damage. So anytime any damage happens, it's going to print string, right? Print that damage. So bring the damage into the string, and it's going to convert that float to a string. And I'll drag I already have a BP character base. I just dragged BP character base into the level. Go back to my character base, switch the default weapon to a pipe, and let's see if the damage is working. If I go up and bonk this guy. All right, I realized nothing was happening because haste makes waste, and I forgot to change the value of the variables. So back on BP pipe, make sure, I also went through it really quickly, but make sure that you were copying pasting the event commit attack notify from like this section of the documentation. And once you paste it in and you promote the variables, make sure you also compile and set the default value for the damage to 100 and the damage range also to 100. You can only set that once you compile it. And once I go whack him with the pipe, he picks up the pipe too. You can see a little 100 pop up in the corner of the screen. So the damage is working. It's not popping up unless I hit him. So the pipe is functioning well. Later on, we'll add HP, of course. So now when we override the event commit attack and notify on, let's do the gun next. We'll go to BP gun. Event commit attack anim notify, create that event. Once again, I am not going to build all of that out. I'm just going to control click on stuff. Set everything. And make sure that you are copying pasting this section from the documentation. This first parent node is making sure that it's doing everything in the parent function first. We're getting the viewpoint of our character. That's going to be the location that we send this line trace by channel. This is a good opportunity if you didn't fix your project so that the player can look up and the player's body is attached to the camera. You can do that by going into BP character FPS, adding this to your event begin play. It's just an attach here. I'll show how you do that. You can just drag out from the parent begin play and search for attach component to component, get the one that has the mesh in parentheses, and then drag your player eye from the components tab right here and into the parent function. And that's just attaching the mesh to the camera so that when you look up and stuff, the hands and your weapon also look up with you. Otherwise, they would disappear from the screen. Then select your player eye and make sure use pawn rotation. Use pawn control rotation is checked. That's what's actually allowing you to look up and down. But if you don't have that set, the gun line tracing is going to be wonky. So make sure you have that set. Also, this value has to be very high, I found. But that looks good. Line trace, make sure that's set to camera. And now we actually want to see where we're shooting. So, and we also want to apply damage. So just for brevity's sake, I'm going to copy and paste the next part of this. So after the line trace by channel on our BP gun that we just pasted in, this is the next part to paste in. So I'm just going to connect the apply damage. I'm going to compile it so it shows me all the variables that I have to make. Set the damage to something. I'll set it to 100. It can one shot. What else is it yelling at me for? Error here. That's because this is not connected to anything. Break hit result is giving you all the results of the whatever this line trace by channel is returning. That looks like that's everything we had to do for that. So that's now applying damage. Some of these nodes are very self-explanatory. And then at the end, I'm just going to paste this spawn system at location. Because we already have this make rotation from X node. Paste that at the end. Drag it down. Connect the make rotation. And the location is going to be asking for the location from our break hit result. Looks pretty good. Looks pretty good. We just added the Niagara effects to our project, so I already know it's going to be NS simple burst. I'll use level 2. So I set the system template to NS simple burst. I'm going to compile and save, and then hit the magnifying glass so that it takes me to it, and open it up, and select this NS simple burst node that is cyan colored. Go into the details panel and set the loop behavior to once. Otherwise, it'll keep playing forever. All right, let's see if that works. But I need to actually pull out the. So that's in BP character base. In the acquire new weapon, set that to gun. That was coming out of the event begin play. Pull out my gun, shoot, sweet. So that feels very responsive. That feels very natural. So once you add like sound effects, and if I go and shoot the BP character base, you also need a crosshair. I think that's what we're doing next because it's hard to aim. But yeah, you see the damage gets printed when I hit him. All right, now let's do the grenade launcher, and then we're all set. So let's go to the weapons folder. First, we're going to need a grenade that's going to do stuff. So right-click, blueprint class, actor, then BP grenade, and open that up. In the components tab, let's add a static mesh and call it SM grenade. Static mesh grenade. In the details panel, search for SM grenade in that static mesh section. In the event graph, we're going to have two events. The ignite event, which is when we shoot it, what's going to launch it. And then we have the when it hits something, what happens in that case. So once again, I'm just going to, this is from this part of the documentation, copy, paste the entire ignite stuff and paste it into the event graph. Make sure that the location rules are set to keep world. Let's compile it so that it yells at me. Gonna promote, create variable, promote speed. Click it, compile it again, and set that default speed to 2500. I just found that works well. And this is detaching it because we're gonna attach it to our grenade launcher in a second. Let's select the add projectile movement node because I know that there's a couple of settings we need to change. So let's check should bounce. And I think we are checking rotation follows velocity. We just double check it. Not spreading fake. Want to double check rotation follows velocity. That's right. And then it is enabling our collision when we shoot it so that we can. I don't trust that this variable is correct because I put an underscore. So I'm going to delete this SM grenade and drag out from my components panel and redo that. I suggest doing that. Reconnecting this mesh if you copied and pasted it. And then because it is setting our collision to enabled, I am assuming that it should be disabled to start. So I'm going to select the SM underscore grenade and set the collision. Oh, just search for collision, switch it, the collision presets from block all to no collision. Then also don't forget to drag your static mesh on top of the default scene root, and then it should like eat the default scene root and just be there by itself. All right, that's one done. Compile, that's looking good. Next, I'm going to select the grenade, delete these search things, scroll down, and on component hit. Is it on component hit or on component begin? It's on component hit. So press the plus button next to that event. Once again, I'm going to copy paste all this stuff. Copying and pasting everything except for that. Getting projects and then just hook up the white arrows. Other actor is going into this pin. Makes sense. So we want to spawn a big explosion when we hit something. So system template. We already downloaded that free Niagara pack. Niagara explosion. For some reason. I'm going to go with Niagara Explosion 03. And I'm going to hit the magnifying glass, click it, just like we did for the other thing. Click on the cyan node box and set the loop behavior to once. It's not constantly doing explosions. If you really want to get into VFX, you can get into like what all this stuff means and really like edit it. Some of you, I'm sure, will do stuff like that. And then applying damage. So let's create this damage range node and set that to 200. Compile and set that to 200. So that's going to do like fall off damage, as this node suggests. Explosion damage, you have to create that one as well. Set that to maybe a little bit higher, 200 damage. And then it destroys the grenade. All right, now the grenade's done. Let's do the stuff that's going to be on the actual grenade launcher. So we want to do three things. We want to load the grenade when the grenade launcher is spawned. We want to make sure that it's on the nose of the grenade launcher, like where it's actually going to shoot from. Then we want to make sure that it's shooting out when our grenade launcher is on that foil point in animation. So first, let's go find our static mesh. In the static mesh folder, open the SM launcher. In the socket manager tab that's shuffled next to the details panel, press the green plus button. Name it launch point socket, exactly. So no spaces, capitalized. And then just move the launch point on the x-axis until it's like sitting on the nose of the grenade launcher. Then let's go to the grenade launcher event graph or BP grenade launcher. And let's go to the documentation. Right around here, I'm going to copy paste this load grenade on spawn method into the project. It's just spawning the grenade on the transform of the socket that we just made. So let's make that variable. Create grenade launch point, pilot. Make sure that you select the variable, go to the default value, and set it exactly to the name of the socket, which is launch point socket. The mesh, you can just delete the mesh that we have here and drag in your own mesh from the components panel. So these little, so it says like SM pipe, just delete that, and drag in the static. Loaded grenade, we have to make that variable too. So let's create variable loaded grenade. That is just gonna create itself, and that's all good. Make sure these drop downs are set to snap on target. So the grenade should be spawning now. Now let's override the event commit attack atom notify, just like we did for the gun and the pipe. But for the grenade, we want to shoot the grenade. So let's go back. We do that right here, just below it. Copy and paste everything. This one I would like create this manually, create this red node manually, and just paste everything else, and then connect it up there. And this is just shooting again right towards the middle of the actor eyes view, and then calling this ignite function. That's on the grenade. Let me go back to the file and save. All right, let's test it. I think that was everything. So I go to BP character base, set the weapon class that I acquire at the beginning to launcher. And let's see if we can shoot this guy. It did not work because that's what happens when you try to rush and you're not reading everything. We have to actually call the load grenade on spawn. So this is in the BP grenade launcher. In the event begin play, at the end of the parent begin play, call the loaded grenade on spawn. Because you can make it and not call it, nothing's going to happen. So now, you know, if I press F8, you can see there's like a grenade at the end there. We can see that the grenade spawned, and then boom, I missed them. Tough, because we didn't have a reloading system yet. So let's try again. See, that did 124, so it does like less damage the farther it is away. So that's looking good. So that's it. Next, there's reloading. There's going to be a crosshair, which is going to help a lot, and adding some UI and getting a cool little health bar on top of him. So that's it for now, though. See ya.